Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting in order on January 17th, 2024's public information meeting at, time is it? 7:01 p.m. And I will start with roll call. Councillor Spools. Present. Councillor Bailey.
Here.
Councillor Hurst. Present. And Councillor Goy sends her regrets. And that will begin our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. This way, I actually have the confirmation of the agenda. That's what it says on here, but we don't do that, do we, for public information?
So we can, no, we don't need to do that. Yeah.
Same disclosure.
If you can ask if there's any disclosures related to budget, for sure.
Is there any disclosure of community interests in relation to the budget? All right, next up is our proposed budget. Ms. Hassan. I believe Ms. Whitebox is going to share your presentation. Oh, I got to read the notes first, don't I? Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Purpose of this public meeting is to inform and provide the public with the opportunity to ask questions or to express views with respect to the township's proposed 2024 budget. Councilors are here to observe and listen to your comments. However, they will not make any decisions this evening. Township requests that you notify by email Mary Hassan at mhassan@puslinch.ca or by phone at 519-763-1226, extension 222, if you wish to be on record regarding this matter. Please note the meeting is video and audio recorded, and all electronic means are uploaded to the municipality's YouTube page. By registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. The format of this public meeting is as follows. Mary Hassan, Director of Finance, will present the proposed 2024 budget and any further relevant information. Following this, the public can obtain clarification, ask questions, and express their views. Members of the public are permitted 10 minutes each to ask questions and express their views. This time limit is imposed to provide each member of the public an opportunity to speak. Staff will attempt to answer questions or respond to concerns this evening. If this is not possible, staff will follow up and obtain this information. Responses will be provided when this matter is brought forward and evaluated by council at the February 7th, 2024 council meeting. Now, I will ask Mrs. Hassan to go through her presentation.
Good evening, council and the public. So we have a brief presentation here, and thank you, Ms. White-Fox, for sharing it on the screen. That's perfect. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So the agenda for tonight is just discussing the budget process. What do property taxes pay for in the township? How has the budget changed from 2023? The impacts on the proposed budget on taxpayers, and so there will be a slide on the impact on the various types of taxpayers in the township. What is included in the operating budget? Also a summary of the 2024 capital budget and forecast. Some information regarding the township's discretionary and restricted reserves. Further engagement opportunities outside of the public information meeting process, and any feedback from the public. But the main objective is to educate and inform you about the township's finances and the proposed 2024 budget, and to receive feedback that staff and council can consider before finalizing the budget. So where are we in the budget process? It is a very reiterative process that started in September. So in September, the senior leadership team commenced the development of the capital and operating budgets. Then in September, we also had a budget process and service level review with council, in which several items were directed to staff to incorporate in our 2024 proposed budgets. Today, we have our public information meeting. We had our user fees and charges process, which is a significant item that feeds into our operating budget. And so we had a survey as part of our user fees and charges process that was live from August to October, with our user fees and charges bylaw being passed in December, I believe. In October, we presented our first draft of the capital budget to council. In December, we presented our first draft of the operating budget to council. We've had an engage puslinch.ca survey regarding the budget from December, and it's going to be open until the end of January of this month. On January 10th, we presented the second draft of the capital and operating budget to council. At that meeting, we were able to provide council with all of the changes that had occurred since our last draft and what the impacts of the proposed budget were on the various types of taxpayers in the township. So January 17th, we're having a public information meeting on budget input. I'm sorry, the other public information meeting was regarding user fees and charges. And the goal is to adopt the budget in February. As we all know, the process does not end when the budget is adopted. The budget is our best estimate on the township's revenues and expenditures for the year, but costs change, unfortunately. New projects arise and projects may be delayed when better information is available. However, the budget process is necessary in order to determine how much property taxes the township needs to levy for the year. The next slide discusses the budget. So the township collects property taxes on behalf of the County of Wellington and the boards of education, as well as the township. As you can see, the township's share of the tax bill is relatively small compared to the other, compared to the county and the boards of education. This slide just discusses what the property tax levy is in terms of capital and operating, and it compares it to the 2023 tax levy. The allocation between capital and operating hasn't changed significantly year over year. 75% of the levy is funding the operating budget, with 25% funding the capital budget. Yeah, so that's that for that slide. And the services that the township provides are all outlined in this slide. Several different services, which kind of explain what property owners do get for their tax dollars for all of the services that the township does provide. This slide just discusses how the property tax levy has increased. It only explains how the tax levy has changed. The next slides will factor in growth in the township and the changes in taxes for the median typical property in the township. So the next few slides just discuss some of the changes in the operating tax levy. So they're grouped into different changes, including mandated internally through council approved policy or previous council direction. That's what this slide is discussing. So our cost of living adjustment in accordance with our policy, salary grid movements in accordance with policy. There have been a couple of full-time positions that have been allocated, which have a nominal tax levy impact, given the positions are funded through various funding sources, such as reserves, increased recoveries, and decreased expenditures. We do have some permanent base budget increases that were approved at the December 13th council meeting. We do have some unavoidable contract service costs that have increased, tree maintenance program costs. We've done some further phasing of the Cambridge Fire Services contract, an increase in community grants, an increase in user fees and charges rates, and this results in a tax levy decrease. And that increases in accordance with policy, and recognition of various savings for an aquifer study, the winter maintenance discretionary reserve contribution, and insurance contingency discretionary reserve contribution. And these all resulted in a tax levy decrease. The next slide are the changes in the operating tax levy, which relate to externally mandated items, which relate to legislation, other agencies, or current economic trends. So the increase in the Ontario minimum wage, the increase in the mandatory employee benefit cost employer contribution rates, increase in City of Guelph dispatch costs, increase in railway costs, increase in fuel across the corporation, increase in Conservation Authority levy payments, and increase in municipal insurance premium costs. And again, these are all items that have been mandated externally through external factors. The next slide discusses some of the changes that were recommended by township staff. So we're seeing an increase in vehicle maintenance costs and fire and rescue services, and that's based on previous year actuals. Increase in fire and rescue services on-call payments. Increase in calcium and winter maintenance costs in public works. Increase in engineering, environmental and legal professional fees across the corporation. And a lot of these, sorry, now I'll just note some of the decreases that are actually resulting in a tax levy decrease, which include decrease in professional development, mileage and other travel costs, advertising costs, office supplies and equipment, vehicle maintenance and maintenance gravel. An increase in interest revenue is being projected, and that also results in a tax levy decrease. And an increase in payment in lieu of tax revenue based on the 2024 returned assessment roll, and this also results in a tax levy decrease. So these are some of the main factors that are resulting in the change in the operating tax levy. So when determining the tax levy requirements, we do review the information that we've received from the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. And they're responsible for determining the assessment changes for all of the properties in the township. Similar to previous years, the 2024 return assessment roll has resulted in little to no assessment changes due to the province's continued postponement of the 2024 assessment update. And they commenced this postponement after the COVID-19 pandemic. We are, however, seeing some new assessment growth of 2.99% or 81.3 million. And this relates to new construction and renovations. And if there had not been any new assessment growth in the township, the proposed budget would have resulted in a township tax increase of about 7%. You'll see in the upcoming slides that it's significantly less than that amount. So we typically provide the impact of the levy on the single family home, a farmland property, small retail commercial property, and standard industrial property. The township and county tax rate is preliminary at this time until the county tax policy is adopted by county council. And the county's proposed budget is scheduled to be approved in January. Also, the education tax rates will be finalized through regulation at a later date. We've assumed that the education tax rates will be similar to previous years in this analysis. So this slide discusses what the proposed impact is on the median single family home. It's about 4.1% and $46, and that's just the township tax increase. But the blended impact, so including the township, the county, and the education taxes, is 3.81% and $233. And the reason the blended impact is less than the township impact is because, as you noted in a previous slide, the township's allocation of the tax bill is significantly less than the other, like the county and education. And so this pie chart here discusses what the township's portion is versus the county and education for the single family home. This slide discusses what the impact is on a farmland property. So again, it's 4.1% and $12, with the blended impact being 3.81% and $62. Yeah, and then we can go on to the next slide. So this is just a pie chart showing what the township's portion is in comparison to the county and the education. The next slide just discusses the small retail commercial property. Again, 4.1% and $59 for the township tax increase. The blended is 2.65% and $296. Again, of the commercial property, the township only obtains 13% of the total tax bill, with the county getting 47% and the school boards getting 40%. And that's what this slide depicts. For the median typical standard industrial property, again, 4.10% and $241. That's the township tax increase. And a blended tax increase of 3.14% and $1,213. Again, all of these slides have shown that the median assessment hasn't changed from 2023 to 2024, and that's because of the province's postponement on the reassessment of our properties. So of the full tax bill for an industrial property, the township retains 15%, the school board's 30%, and the county 55%. So the next few slides are discussing just an overview of the 2024 proposed operating budget. There was a draft bylaw, which includes both the operating and capital budget on the township's website. As you can see on this slide just indicates where the property tax is going in terms of each service area in the township. And similar to previous years, public works, fire, and general government are the higher proportion of the property tax. The total operating expenditures by type, this is just by different types of operating expenditures, such as salaries, wages, and benefits, contract services, and whatnot. And similar to previous years, salaries, wages, and benefits are higher than some of the other items, with contract services and professional fees second. And this is all related to the operating budget as well. Our total operating revenues by type, property taxes, user fees and licenses, grants and other recoveries. And these percentages are comparable to previous years. The next few slides are just going to discuss the proposed capital budget and long-term forecast. And again, there was a draft bylaw included on the township's website with the operating and capital budget for the public's viewing. So the capital budget by department is just noted on this slide, with public works and corporate and parks with the most expenditures from other departments. And corporate, a lot of it relates to contributions to our asset management discretionary reserve. But we will discuss those further down in future slides. So this slide just discusses of all of the capital projects that we are proposing for 2024. This is the funding strategy for these projects. So discretionary reserves, a significant amount of that comes from our asset management discretionary reserve, which we do have to contribute to in order to meet the requirements of our asset management plan and our rehabilitation and replacement of our current infrastructure, the requirements in that. The next item is the capital tax levy, and most of the capital tax levy relates to contributions to our discretionary reserves, whether it be our asset management discretionary reserve or our gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve. That's where the majority of the capital tax levy relates to. Our restricted reserves relate to development charges or parkland dedication. We have some grant funding in here as well, and the Canada Community Building Fund. So the next few slides just discuss the 2024 capital budget by department. So in public works, we have some contributions to our gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve. We have some road rehabilitation projects on Watson Road South, Gore Road as well, and Maple Leaf Lane. And then we also have budgeted a comprehensive speed limit review for township roads with a posted speed above 60 kilometers an hour, as recommended in our roads management plan. The next slide is just discussing our corporate items. So contributions to our asset management discretionary reserve, contributions to our corporate information technology discretionary reserve, a compensation and benefits review, computer equipment, regionally significant economic development study area, phase 1, employment, a contribution to our administrative studies reserve, which was a newly established reserve as a result of the implications of Bill 23, which have significant ramifications on municipalities, unfortunately, with studies no longer being eligible to be DC funded. And so council did establish a new reserve to help mitigate that risk. Migration to Microsoft 365 implementation, and server and network infrastructure replacement. In our parks area, we have the parking lot and associated enhancements project. This is a project that did commence in 2023, but there are additional funds required based on the design works that were completed. And that's what this relates to. We also have a pickup truck in parks that we budgeted to be purchased. At the Puss Lynch Community Center, replacement of UV pure water treatment system and window and door replacement program. In finance, our 2024 development charges background study, as our current bylaw will be expired in 2024. Asset management plan and policy updates in accordance with Ontario Regulation 588-17. So another required project. And the 2024 conservation and demand management plan, based on the legislative requirements in the provincial legislation to have this completed by July 2024. In fire and rescue services, structural firefighter gear replacement. This is an annual project based on the life cycle of these gear of 10 years. Wildland firefighting equipment as well. And then in the municipal office, we are working on a request for proposal for a detailed design of our municipal administration operations facility to determine how much any work around that facility will cost. Gas-fired infrared heaters in our public works area and the replacement of a UV pure water treatment system as well in the municipal office. The next slide just discusses the capital budget and forecast and what the average expenditures are over our 10-year forecast at about 4.9 million. The next few slides are just discussing our discretionary and restricted reserves. This is our audited balances in our discretionary and restricted reserves from 2015 to 2022. Which are looking healthy and are increasing year over year, which is good to see. The next slide discusses budgeted contributions to capital and operating discretionary reserves from 2015 to our 2024 proposed budget. The decrease in the operating contribution to discretionary reserves relates to the aggregate levy, given the full aggregate levy is now contributed to the to fund public works capital projects. The majority of the capital contribution to capital discretionary reserves relates to a contribution into our asset management discretionary reserve of approximately 949,000 in order to ensure that the township is able to maintain its minimum target balance of 2 million and maximum target balance of 4 million in this reserve as recommended in the township's asset management plan and budget development and control policy. Council also in previous years established a gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve for the purpose of improving the township's gravel roads. And so council has authorized an increase to this contribution as part of the 2024 proposed budget at 320,800. As I previously indicated as well, council also made the prudent decision of establishing an administrative studies discretionary reserve due to the unfortunate implications associated with Bill 23. And so council did authorize a contribution to this reserve as part of the 2024 proposed budget. So we have had several engagement opportunities associated with our proposed budget. At the onset of the year, we did receive some advisory committee budget input and provide the advisory committees an opportunity to provide input for 2024 proposed budget items. We've also had many social media posts and advertisements on Facebook and Twitter. We have a dedicated budget page at pusslynch.ca as well, where we have incorporated all of our budget reporting documents in there. And also a community engagement survey at engagepusslynch.ca, which has been open from December 22nd and it'll close on January 31st at 12 p.m. We've had some advertisements on Puss Lynch Today and Wellington Advertiser. We have our public information meeting today. And we've also had some media releases related to the survey. as well. And we'll, after the budget is approved, we will also be providing media releases regarding our final budget highlights. And we also do provide our final budget highlights in our community newsletter, which is sent with the final tax bill in August of 2024. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd welcome any questions.
Great, thanks, Mrs. Sam.
Yeah.
Do you have any people attending online? So do you want to try and query them?
We already have a hand being raised.
It's the hard part.
I got a little break. Right, so the first hand being raised for Margaret.
Good evening, Margaret.
Oh, good evening. It's weird doing it this way. However, I have a couple. Oh, it's so great to see everyone's faces in that snow compared to where I am in Bangkok. So welcome, folks. So I have 6 questions. My main question is the engagement survey piece. How many people do take that survey?
Steve, she's looking it up for you.
Okay, and then I can go on. Oh, sorry.
Just wait a second.
Yeah, I can.
Want me to come back to you? All right. Yeah, go ahead with your second question.
Okay. So I thought, Jamie, that the community grants were down this year, at least from what I read.
So my understanding, I'll let staff clarify, is that we approved the same amount this year, or maybe we increased it, but where the real decrease happened was the previous budget cycle. So there has been a desire by council to incrementally increase back to historic levels, but I don't believe we were lower this year than last year. So maybe Mrs. Sand, you can answer that.
Yeah, we were actually higher, I believe by about 5,000 compared to last year. But Mayor Sealy is correct that last year we did decrease it just based on the budget pressures that were in place last year. And so it has increased, I believe, by about 5,000 this year.
Okay, because that's what I thought, because I thought with the premise saying that it was going to go down next year and be prepared for a decrease in your community grant, which is fine. So the other question I have,
Margaret, that's not correct. Next year we are the direction from council was that our desire is to look at increasing community grants as long as they're eligible to historic levels, which you have to look at. Typically, it's 0.5% of a tax increase, the equivalent to. So, anyways, we're moving, not down.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good news for us then. My other question is with regards to staff increases. I get it. Is it just an automatic cost of living that just is a standard across, or does council have any input into that?
Did you want me? Yeah. So we do have a policy in terms of reviewing CPI from, I believe it's May to May. But we also do look at what other municipalities' increases are. And we have been in line with other municipalities. But Mayor Sealy, if you want to add to that.
So we do have a policy in place that compares, as Mrs. Sand said, CPI from May to May. Our role as council is we put the policy in place and how staff are supposed to report back on raises, which include raises for council. With the COVID environment that we were operating in there for a few years, inflation was through the roof. There was also 1 year where inflation was 0 or maybe 1 tick below 0. So there was a recognition from staff that there were protections in that 1 year that they took their 0% raise, that there was a protection that they wouldn't go backwards, and staff brought a report forward that, or a policy change that said it would also cap the CPI tax increase to a certain percent, which is 4. And if CPI from whatever it is, May to May or September to September, there's different ways to value it. Mrs. Sand just said what we do. I think she just say May to May. May to May. If it is above 4%, then we carry over what wasn't captured to the next year for consideration. Along with that, we also have a market review, which then analyzes what we pay compared to other municipalities. And then we, if need be, we do an adjustment. That doesn't necessarily mean there will be an adjustment, but there's also that. So that's a second opportunity to catch staff up to make sure they're being paid at a fair amount. And a second part of that component or that policy is that we look at what percentile that we are paying our staff compared to other municipalities. And I believe we're at the 50 percentile. Correct. Whereas there's other member municipalities in Wellington County that are north of 60. So what that means, and I'm not trying to infer that you're
Dumbing me down. Yes, I get it. Keep going, Jamie. I'm fine.
We want to be right in the middle of what staff receive as pay. The municipalities that choose to be 60%, they want to be on the higher end. So we're trying to find the middle ground. And so far, we've had good luck with that in keeping our staff here at Pussum. So,
right, because I understand retention. Retention would be big for us because we're so small. So when you compare, we are comparing with the same size of staffing township, like when we compare for that 50%. We're not comparing with Mississauga versus Toronto.
Yes, we are comparing. Yeah.
First, I want to say is that we don't necessarily compare. We don't go and find a municipality that has 7,500 residents, 3,500 homes, and compare what they're paying their staff, because they might be located in, you know, next to Manitoba.
Right.
You know, through amalgamation in '99, we were left standalone, so we are quite small. We do have to recognize that we are competing with larger municipalities. Waterloo, we lost staff to Waterloo, to Wilmot Township, lost staff. So the comparison is not, it's hard to find exact comparators, but we do have to compare against the municipalities that we neighbor and other municipalities in Wellington County to try to find some fair type of remuneration.
Okay. On one of the slides, Mary, you talked about penalties being 6%. Can you explain to me what penalties we would have? I wish I could remember which number that was. It doesn't come up on the Zoom as to what number that is of a slide.
Oh, it's interest and penalty on taxes that haven't been paid. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what that is.
We should do it monthly, and then it wouldn't be such a big to-do. So an increase in interest, is that just because of what the bank was offering versus an interest increase? One of the slides had talked about that.
Oh, interest revenue. Yeah, interest revenue because of the high interest rate environment that we've been in. So we determine our estimate is based on our 3-year actuals, and so that's increased as part of the 2024 proposed budget in comparison to the 2023.
All right, that's what I thought. And the reserve, you talked a lot about things being in the reserve. So isn't that just like a savings account kind of thing if we were just going to, like the slide of that, like
yes, so we do contribute to our discretionary reserves, and it is like a savings account in order to fund all of our projects over our 10-year forecast period. And we do provide counsel with the balances in our discretionary reserves to ensure they're reasonable prior to budget approval, and as well through the budget process.
Okay, good. and of course, I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but I'm probably the most vocal about it, is the county takes such a huge amount of our tax dollars. And I'm not, I mean, other than we had to wait like 55 years for a new road, County 46, I'm not, and a new library long ago. What else does the city, I mean, the county do for us that requires such a large portion of our tax dollars?
So I'll try and conquer that. So the county has social service responsibilities. They do the library program, all of our garbage and recycling. Is that, sorry, policing? Yes, that's a big one. It's a huge component. So that's it in a nutshell, to be honest with you. Policing is 20, I think it's 20 million bucks a year or something. Yeah, paramedics too, the EMS, paramedics, libraries, all the road network for the county, and social services. Dev. So
Land division versus many.
yeah, land division. So
And when
part
you,
of the reason, so I'll actually back up. Part of the reason why taxes are high for the county portion in Puslinch is assessment value. I believe it was the Mike Harris government changed how we collected taxes, and they base it on per 100,000 of assessment. So, well, Erin, Welker, Mosa, and Puslinch have higher assessment values than the remainder of the county. So we pay more because our houses are assessed higher. If it'll never happen, I don't believe it will ever happen. If we were ever to revert back to just taxing per household in the county, we would see a major reduction. But in a sense, we are being penalized because our land values are assessed higher.
Okay, that does make sense, but that is like a bone of contention always when we talk about the county being, I don't know, 67 cents out of our $1. And Jamie, I think that would a good point would be to let, now I'm not new to the township, but it would be great to have that written down of why that county part is so big, because it's not council, the existing council that's, you know, having anything really to do with that. It's what services are we seeing? And we're not really seeing too much unless you live on 46 and you get the snowplow going down. But many people that are new to this township don't see that 46 is a county road, because what does that mean to them? Nothing. They commute to Toronto. And that the school is township done. I don't know. I think it's just an awareness of more like, why are we paying so much? And what social services do we get from the county? I'm curious.
Pretty loaded question. I mean, there's a plethora of terms. There's affordable housing, assisted housing, there's transitional housing, there's the shelter system in Guelph. These are all social services administered for the city through the county. There's a cost sharing component of that. The city pays 90%, we pay 10%. Land ambulance, the county receives that service from the city of Guelph. That's on the cost sharing as well. We pay 40% of the costs versus the city pays 60%, and that's based on a formula around where the call originates. And this was all decided back before many of the people here. But it went to a tribunal. The county took the city of Guelph to a tribunal, so that's been hashed out for years. But so social services is administered through us, but the burden of the cost is borne by the city of Guelph. And that's where most of the residents that are experiencing the homelessness are from. But it's land ambulance. EMS is expensive in the county. It's very large geographically. And solid waste, you know, running the one and only landfill is expensive, plus picking up the garbage, the green bin, recycling, which is actually going to come off of county's responsibility in 2025. So I don't know if that helps, but
it helps me. But as you know, your night that you have these meetings is the same night as Aberfoyle Agricultural Society meetings. So I haven't been able to attend. So I don't know if the population base is just empathetic or not empathetic at all. We just sit back and complain. I don't know. That county part has always comes up when we do city council or council things. So I don't know. There needs to be an awareness, I guess, of that. That's just from my point.
Well, the
all right.
county meets the last Thursday of every month. So if our meeting is on the Agricultural Society meeting date, that would mean the county date is not. So that is at the county building in the city of Guelph. AF and HR, which is admin, finance and human resources, meets second Tuesday. I'm on that committee of every month. So those are opportunities to come in here where the budget is at the county, and you can, those are open to the public, and be a great opportunity to express your concerns.
Yes, Jamie, I'll see what I can do about that, because you know how I feel about council meetings. I don't want to repeat because it's all being recorded. Okay, so the only other piece that I'm missing is the engagement survey part.
Right, she's ready. She's looking at me.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So to date for the 2024 survey, the total visits to the site has been 95 with 22 engaged visitors. In comparison to 2023, the total for that survey, the visits was 149, engaged visitors was 35. So just keeping in mind that our survey is running until January 31st.
No, I've already filled it out and it comes to my Twitter, but if we're only basing, I don't know why people don't access that more. You've got it in a bunch of stuff. That's disappointing because that's not very many people to base on a full township.
But I will say it's an increase from just old school, have a open door meeting, public meeting. You're getting more engagement. I agree with you. I feel that more engagement is better, but this is going the right direction. So,
but still not enough, considering the world is going in the media sense. Like even COVID helped the senior base, which apparently is the biggest demographics in Pussling.
Maybe everybody else is just happy with the job we're doing.
Okay, Jamie, that could be a disillusional comment right there. Yeah, there needs to be some engagement elsewhere for that, Jamie. Okay, I'm still disappointed because I personally would like to see that more, because the complaints that I hear when I'm out and about, and I always say to them, do that engagement piece. And I can't believe people say, what engagement piece? But anyways, okay. I have no more.
Okay, well, thank you for attending tonight.
Oh, morning for me, Jamie.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Enjoy your vacation. Thank you for taking time away from it.
You're welcome.
Keep spreading the word on the engagement part of our website. Is there other attendees?
So through Mr. Chair, if there's any other attendees that are looking to ask questions or make comments, at the bottom of your screen, there is a raise your hand button that you can press and your hand will be raised, and that will tell us that you're looking to participate. Mr. Chair, we'll just give it a few seconds here to make sure people can find that button.
I'll go to our member in the gallery here to see if they have anything. We have one member in attendance. Do you have some questions you'd like to ask? Yes, please. Sure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, hold on. I wasn't going to ask, but maybe just come down here. Some microphones will pick you up. It's right to the front desk.
I'm sorry.
I think I'm Jay.
Sure.
Just come down to this other desk. Thanks, buddy. And then just say your name. Do you need that? Yes, or just both? You can say your
Jason Ganning, 7462 Fielding Lane. A few questions I have. One would be in the raises to our staffers. I know that you compare it to other municipalities, like you said previously in the meeting. But why do we just have to follow suit? like the 4%, we could say, okay, you only get 2% this year, 2% next year. You know, just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean that we have to do it as well.
So council can choose to make a policy. I mean, relax, we can make a policy that we never give raises. You know, that's our prerogative. We're council, we can make policy for a corporation. What you have to look at as a council is the value on retention, retraining, the knowledge base, right?
Yep,
So,
yep.
if we go to a place where, say, we implement a policy that we cap it at, say, 2%, and then you're right, like it's a catch-up thing, like the neighboring municipalities continue to do CPI, because CPI, the intent of CPI is to keep you within your economic position in the world, right? So if inflation is going up and your raises are not keeping up with inflation, then you're technically going backwards. So our goal as a corporation is to keep our staff so we're not in this constant cycle of retraining and hiring those things, and because that has a cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So part of reducing that cost is keeping up with CPI. However, you have those COVID years.
But I think treating the township should be treated more as a business. Like in the private sector, there's a lot of companies out there right now that aren't giving any raises and haven't given any raises, even though inflation is increasing. And I get that doubling staff over is an expense to the township, but when one fish leaves, another one will take its place. That's just life. Like, I get other people in previous years have left to different municipalities because they were probably paying more money. But I mean, if you're happy with Both Township and you like working here, then you'll probably stay. Most people stay at a company that they like. Not all people just chase the dollar.
It's a fair statement, but
I would just hope that staff would take or council would take into consideration that, yeah, it's a tough world out there. And when people in the private sector aren't getting raises, they don't really like to see public staff getting raises.
yeah, and I think a better spot to adjust that is when we do the market evaluation. That's a good opportunity for council to say, are we gonna go 51%, stay at 50? What does 50 mean? But I think council's hearing what you're saying, but
if you say the high end is 60%, well, halfway is only 30, not 50.
no, that's
Halfway comparing to another municipality anyways.
I think the 50% mark is we're in the 50% of paying top dollar. It's a scale. Maybe you can explain it better.
So it's a percentile, so across municipalities, we would be in and around the 50th percentile, meaning 50% of municipalities pay more than us, 50% pay less than us. And in Wellington County, I'd say the top end of the municipalities among the Wellington County tops at around 60, meaning there's still 40% of the municipalities paying more than what is being paid in Wellington County.
So I think it's a decent spot. Yeah, but
I think your staff does a good job, but I would hope the council would take that into consideration. Part two would be part of our operating budget for our roads department. I know that a lot of people in Pilsen complain about our gravel roads, and they would like to see more improvement to those gravel roads. I know you're putting toward a good step towards hard surfacing. The downfall with hard surfacing is it really makes our back roads super highways for commuters, which is a big problem. And I would hope that council would take into consideration putting some money towards speed monitoring or having the OPP down here more often. I noticed they're sitting in Aberfoyle tonight, which is good. But the biggest thing for me is when it comes to road maintenance gravel. I see that the budget is allowing for $75K this year. To me, it is a huge waste of money. The maintenance gravel, they lay it down and it just gets spread to the shoulders by the vehicles. It is an absolute complete waste of money, in my opinion. I mean, I'm in the construction field. I deal with this all the time, not so much on roads, but in other lines of construction. So my question is, why don't we eliminate some of the road maintenance gravel and direct it more to shoulder reclaiming? Because that's where most of our snowplows are depositing gravel through the winter.
I'll let Mr. Fowler answer that. Mr. Fowler, if you can focus on the importance, in your opinion, of the maintenance gravel program, and what could we expect from our roads if if we were to remove that portion of the budget?
To you, Mr. Chair, well, as far as maintenance gravel goes, the intent of it is to replenish the gravel from on a 2-year cycle. 1 year is done on the east side of the township, 1 year is done on the west. The main reason for the depletion of gravel, which needs to be replaced, is a combination of vehicle traffic, snow plowing, and just basically overall wear and tear, where if new maintenance gravel is not placed every 2 years, eventually you will end up getting into the sub base, which consists of clay, large rocks, things like that. So the township has always been in a position to stay on top of the gravel, to keep at least a 6-inch base of granular A or granular M as a driving surface, as not to take the risk of eventually getting into the sub base.
So years gone by, the aggregate producers provided the gravel to the township for free as part of, your operating year. That ship has left port and it sank. So,
I just, the physical.
I'm not done yet. So the maintenance gravel is an important component because, as it states, and the traffic volumes are going up, and, the other thing you mentioned was speed monitoring and, enforcement from the OPP. Actually, I'm gonna back up. Also, the director brought in, and you may have seen it at the bottom in concession 7, they're testing different materials to improve the longevity of the gravel road in a good state. So council's looking forward to that report back from Mr. Fowler. I'm not sure if it's just a 1 winter test study, but definitely council and the staff are trying to find ways to improve the consistency of the gravel roads. Speed monitoring and that stuff. We have been on just discussions with the OPP. We have these things called the black hats. I'm sure you're familiar with them, you've heard about them, read about them, but there was a bit of a gap. An individual like yourself could come in and say, or email, doesn't matter, say, hey, I got a concern with session 7 speeding, and those black hats would be deployed. But then there wasn't necessarily follow-ups. So the OPP has recognized that now, and they're going to do, it's a policy, but they're going to come back and report on how they're going to deal with the data that shows speeding. Now it has to show speeding. If it doesn't show speeding, they're obviously not going to come back. So instead of just being a blitz, then maybe we're going to see, enhanced enforcement over a longer period of time. I don't know what those things are going to be, but they're going to come back. So
I just want to go back to the road maintenance gravel.
Sure.
75K equates to about 104 triaxle loads of gravel being deposited. And I don't see it around our gravel roads. I travel around a lot of other municipalities on the same type of roads, and I must say they're much better quality than some of our roads. I think a lot of it has to do with the maintenance, or the people doing the maintenance, and the type of material that they're using. But I just don't see why we need 104 loads of gravel deposited. It's just not there. Like, for the small parts of roadway that they do touch up, I spent a lot of time in the south end of Puslinch, as you know. There are some bad ones down there that are in swamps and will probably never conquer the problem. But I just don't see the 104 loads being useful on our roads. It's just, they're not maintaining the roads at the optimal times when they should be maintained. And then the problem compounds itself because they're not being maintained at the proper times with the proper material. And I just don't see the 75K being a huge priority when you could just be reclaiming shoulders, like you could spend the 75K and have a shoulder reclaimer come out and bring all that gravel that has been pushed off to the sides, brought back into the road again. I mean, it's quite common practice, maybe not in Ontario so much, but there are a lot of other places that do that.
I've seen a reclaimer in use. I don't know, I don't believe we have one, but I mean, that's something the director can take away is, you know, the thought of looking at reclaiming, but with the new climate environment and the challenges with maintaining our gravel roads, and you're right about paving them, they turn into speed concerns.
Sure.
So it's a double-edged sword, 100%. But
I have no problem leaving them gravel, but just
there's a lot of people that do though. And it's,
yeah.
so it's tough. Maybe the last part on the maintenance gravel is, Mr. Fowler, you're saying that we do the east and the west side. And you mentioned 100 and something triaxle loads, but the 75K, does it provide enough gravel to do half of the township every other year? Or
You, Mr. Chair, we actually decreased the gravel road budget by 5,000 this year. It used to be 80. So again, we will stretch it as far as we can. Obviously, roads coming out of the spring that were identified as swampy or the sub base is deteriorating, we concentrate on those roads first, and we basically apply gravel until the budget runs out.
so, and to be truthful, Jay, just to speak in honest terms, at $75,000, that's a 1.5. If you were to remove it from the budget, you'd get that gain once. So if there was appetite at the council to remove it, I could show you, the staff could show you all these graphs that we're not funding our infrastructure deficits. So bridges, things like this. So that 1.5 wouldn't even go back on the tax levy. We would need to allot it to, you know, like I just said, our asset management plan and infrastructure deficit, because we're already seeing stuff because of COVID and construction prices going through the roof. You know, we're worried that we're not going to be saving enough money. So I don't think there's an appetite, but I mean, council has heard your concerns, and you know, we can discuss it at our future budget meetings. But for me, if the director were to come and recommend even reducing the gravel budget, I'm going to steer that money towards asset management plan, ensure that we don't have to be hit with some astronomical tax increase to fund whatever bridge replacements or this or that, whatever infrastructure is comes due. So, but thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for coming up. Did anybody else raise their hands?
Nope, we don't have any other raised.
All right, so last chance for any people attending virtually to raise their hand, or I'm going to declare this meeting closed. All right. I declare this public meeting closed. Council will take no action on this matter tonight. Staff will be reporting at the February 7th, 2024 council meeting with a recommendation for council's consideration. If you wish to receive further notifications on this matter, notify by email Mary Hassan at mhassan@coalcentre.ca or by phone at 519-763-1226, extension 222. Only those persons who leave their names will be provided further notification. If you wish to speak to the matter when it is brought before council in the future, you must register as a delegation with the township clerk prior to the meeting. Thank you.